Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Here I talk about weapons from games, movies and TV series, comparing it with real life, dispelling myths and giving you the most interesting facts about weapons. In this video we will talk about one of the most legendary games of all time, named CSGO. There are quite a number of different guns and pistols in this game, but players only use a limited arsenal of about 5 weapons. And for this video, we've chosen 3 of the strangest and most unusual weapons that don't appear very often in players' hands, but are clearly worth knowing a bit more about. Because even after 1000 hours in CS, you are unlikely to know how these weapons actually work in real life or what is so unusual and cool about it. And the first weapon that only appeared in CSGO is called Zeus, and the only thing it is used for is to humiliate the enemy, because there are a number of other ordinary weapons that are far more effective. In CS, we want to get more frags, but what's it really like in real life? What would a taser like this be really good for, and what's so interesting about it? Zeus is based on a real weapon that is often used by the police. It is basically a taser that fires 2 darts, followed by thin wires that transmit a 50,000 volt discharge that lasts for 5 seconds. But in reality, only 5,000 to 15,000 volts usually reach the target. However, it is enough to make our nervous system go a little, shall we say, nuts. It also uses electricity to send signals to our muscles, but not to the same extent, so when someone is exposed to a taser, all of our muscles immediately contract and in a very violent way. As a result, the victim remains alive but is in severe pain and has also been immobilized for a few minutes. There comes a perfect moment for the policeman to handcuff the hooligan and put them into the police car. And as you see from the context, this kind of taser is most often used by the police to pacify particularly violent individuals. And the key phrase here is pacify, because if you have to kill someone, a taser is not particularly well suited for that. First of all, a taser does not always work reliably. The fact is that people can react differently to electric shocks. Some may be knocked out in a few minutes and some may not feel much. The criminal will definitely feel uncomfortable, but it is not certain he will drop dead after being tasered because the darts may fail to catch on his clothes and then a much smaller amount of discharge will reach the target. However, the police do not use this weapon on particularly dangerous criminals, and when firing a taser, their job is simply to stop the target from attacking or running away. So they are all instructed to aim for the back. After all, if you hit a person from the front, there's a chance that their heart will stop, and as we understand, when you fire a taser, it is clearly not intended to kill someone. Considering that the analogs of Zeus from CSGO are used by law enforcement officers, things are strict and official there. When the taser is fired, not only the wires fly out, but also the round little pieces of paper on which the serial number of the weapon is written. This way, it is easier to track who owned the taser from which the shot was made. So you can't mindlessly shoot everyone. And after that, going back to Zeus from CSGO, it is clear that although it is shown generally correctly, it definitely cannot kill a man in a bulletproof vest in one shot, and there's no way of knowing for sure that it would work. So once again, we are convinced that CSGO is full of inconsistencies. However, exactly the same taser was in Battlefield Hardline, for example, and there it was made much closer to reality. When hit, the enemy would fall to the ground for a few seconds and be unable to move or shoot, while the attacker would have the opportunity to approach the enemy and finish them off with hand-to-hand combat. But if this was not done, the enemy would be back in the game. Basically, nothing prevented this from happening in CS, but according to the rules of the game, a player can only have 2 states, either dead or alive. So Valve decided not to change anything. It was much easier to make Zeus, which kills with a single shot, even if it is far from reality. And I also think that neither terrorists or counter-terrorist units would obviously in their right mind take a taser of this kind to a serious firefight. And even in CS, there's still a big question as to why it's even needed in the game. And now we're going to talk about something that no professional battle can do without, the flashbang. But the most important question is, why are such grenades that do not kill anyone needed in life? How are they applied and how do they differ in reality from what we see in CS? Actually, these kinds of stun grenades were invented 50 years ago and were first used by the British Army because soldiers did not always want to kill people. And in real conditions, no one is paid money for frags, so if you make it without victims, it has always been the best way. Although these grenades have been described as non-lethal weapons, they are certainly not harmless. After all, they can cause very serious damage to a person. Today, Stun grenades are often used by police or special forces when storming buildings. You throw a flashbang into the room, and a second and a half later, the grenade explodes, emitting a very bright flash of light accompanied by an explosion with a loudness of 170 to 180 decibels. How loud is that? Well, just so you roughly understand, if you're standing a meter away from a speaker at some super loud rock concert, it will only be about 100 decibels. A chainsaw or jackhammer working in your hands emits about the same amount of noise. A shotgun shot next to your ear is loud, as much as 150 decibels, and even that's not as bad as a flashbang going off next to you in an enclosed space. It's a living hell. As described by people who have experienced the effect, for 5 to 10 seconds, you'll be completely blinded and disoriented. But even if you manage to close your eyes or turn away, it doesn't get any better, as the sound generated by a flashbang is twice our threshold for pain. This will cause you to hear nothing but ringing in your ears for another minute or two, and you'll be moving around like a drunk. It would feel like being hit to the head with a baseball bat. That's how the high level of noise affects us, and you don't fully come to your senses until about an hour later. And at the same time, you'll often irrevocably lose part of your hearing, and the closer a grenade explodes to you, the worse the consequences will be. But if the flashbang goes off right under your feet, you could be hit by shrapnel, your clothes could be set on fire, or a finger or two could be torn off. But what do we see in CSGO? Even a decoy when it explodes does damage, but the flashbang for some reason does not. The maximum is a couple of damage when a character is hit directly by a grenade. The blinding effect is completely gone in a couple of seconds, and the stun is also over almost immediately. If you manage to turn your back to the explosion, a flashbang does pretty much nothing in CSGO. But if you do something like that in reality, it won't save you from the sound wave. Not to mention the fact that using a flashbang in a small room will certainly incapacitate the enemy, but also yourself at the same time. And in general, there have even been known fatal cases involving the use of a stun grenade. And even if a person survived, he often suffered serious injuries and hearing problems for the rest of his life. That is why there are many people who believe it is time to replace the 50-year-old flashbangs with safer, more modern options that won't accidentally set your house on fire or leave a person disabled. Now we're going to talk about the weirdest and I'd say even a little stupid CSGO gun, namely the Negev. Because it's really hard to find a normal use for the Negev with its current shooting mechanics. And the name of this machine gun is really stupid. Negev. What is this anyway? And this is none other than the name of one of the deserts in Israel, which is the birthplace of the creators of the Negev. Work on prototypes for this machine gun began in the 90s, and it was not until 1997 that the Negev became the official machine gun of the Israel Armed Forces, with its makers proudly claiming that it is the best light machine gun in the world. But for some reason in Counter-Strike when playing with the Negev, it's hard to believe that it's the best. And why it's considered lightweight is also unclear, because with this weapon equipped in your hands, our player in CS can barely move around. But in reality, it's not that bad at all. The Negev weighs almost as much as the AWP, something around 7 kilograms, which is considered quite light for a machine gun. While the Negev in CS is famous for having a super crappy accuracy on its first few rounds, in real life, it always shoots steadily and in an accurate manner. It has such low recoil that it can be fired accurately even with one hand. The Negev is also often fitted with a very handy sight, a bipod, and a buttstock for stabilization, and a unique feature is that the Negev is capable of firing a single round in semi-automatic mode. In other words, it has no problems at all with accuracy, and in this respect, it is quite competitive with assault rifles. As for CSGO, it's obviously been intentionally degraded there for the sake of the game balance, because buying an accurate and powerful Negev for around $2,000 would be too much. And yes, in reality, by the way, such a machine gun would cost you around $9,000. And you know, it's really worth its money, as the Negev is also incredibly reliable. You could accidentally drop it in a swamp or water, retrieve it, and carry on shooting as if nothing happened. The machine gun has a very simple but clever design, which makes it possible to change the barrel and or switch to a 150 round box with Galil magazine. Or, if you need to shoot hard, then put a machine gun belt on top, with which the rate of fire becomes more than 1,000 rounds per minute. Well, if that's not enough for you, the Negev can even be turned into a grenade launcher using a special ammunition and a barrel missile. And it turns out that, by all accounts, the Negev is a far more serious weapon in real life than what we're used to in CS. And if someone before this video had the impression that CS is a game with a high degree of realism, then I think now this feeling has clearly dissipated. If you enjoyed this video, I look forward to receiving your likes, and if you want to know more fun facts about weapons from games, movies and TV series, then subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any new videos.